Hey guys, Loogie Master here, and today I'm going to be talking about Five Nights at Freddy's, or more specifically, the Five Nights at Freddy's movie that's being worked on. So, 4 days ago, Scott Cawthon made a Reddit post talking about the FNAF movie and having some bad news with it. So, I don't know much about this, so let's just jump into this and read it. Bad news about the FNAF movie. Hi everyone. Before we get to the bad news concerning the state of the Five Nights at Freddy's movie, I wanted to share a brief history of the FNAF screenplays. It's been a long road, so let's take a look at some of the screenplays that have come and gone over the years in no particular order. Or feel free to skip to the end really quick to see the bad news and then come back and enjoy the list. We're just gonna read through it and then get to the bad news. Some of these came from big studios, some came from big directors, some from me, and some from other hired writers. I gave the screenplays a name, and I'll include a brief synopsis as well as what ultimately led to each screenplay being rejected. Let's get started. The F screenplay. Basic setup. Group of teenage troublemakers break into Freddy's. Chaos ensues. Problems. Although a pretty basic setup, there were a lot of odd choices here, which only got weirder as the story continued. The story ended with our protagonist in a secret underground animatronic factory that was designing robots for the government. Verdict? What the fuck? Strayed way too far from source material. Tossed. Okay, let's talk about this a little bit. Really? Top secret underground animatronic factory designing robots for the government. I can see why that was tossed. Let's be real here. Like that really strays from FNAF, I think. So, yeah, I'm glad that was tossed. Let's take a look at the next one. The Plushies Take Manhattan screenplay. This sounds like a play, I'm not gonna lie. Basic setup. Plushies take Manhattan. Problems. Plushies took Manhattan. Verdict: burned with fire. That's very, very quick and simple. I'm not sure how that would have worked, but that would have been an interesting story to tell. Maybe like as a mini movie or something like that. Like make it non canon. But again, yeah, it's a dumb idea. Burn it with fire. All right. The next one is the Random Charlie screenplay. Basic setup. Charlie and friends sneak into Freddy's after hours to retrieve a lost toy. Alright, doesn't seem too bad. Problems. Although sharing names of familiar characters from the series, these characters had nothing to do with their game and book counterparts. So, while featuring familiar elements of the games, it seemed too loosely based on the game and lost a lot of its impact because of it. Verdict: felt like a random bag of FNAF elements with no real stakes. Meh. I kind of agree with Scott on this one. It just feels like it's loosely connected to FNAF. It's like, oh, you're just going into a restaurant that just happens to have Five Nights at Freddy's characters and whatnot. So I can see why this was tossed. The Silver Eyes screenplays, meaning there was going to be more than one. So it was going to basically be based off of the Silver Eyes book. So would have been interesting, but I don't know. Let's see this. Kira and I both worked on three versions of Silver Eye's screenplay over the course of about a year, trying to find the right approach to the story from the first book. Problems. These were the first attempt I made myself to write a screenplay after realizing it was going to be difficult to find someone else who understood the lore well enough to do it. Unfortunately, it also meant these screenplays suffered greatly from my inexperience at writing. Even Kira, with her writing expertise, couldn't save them. Verdict: although these had some good elements, I ultimately decided to focus on making a screenplay from the games and not from the books. And I think that would have been just fine. as in just making it off the games and not the books, as in less people would know about the books. Just saying. The Pawn Shop screenplay. Basic setup. A kid who watches after a pawn shop finds trouble when an animatronic is brought in. It turns out Freddy's had been robbed, and the animatronics were taken to different locations for sale. The other animatronics come to retrieve the one at the pawn shop, and the kid and his friends get roped into adventure. Problems. A creative approach, but felt a little too much like a boy and his animatronic. Too much after school adventure, not enough horror. Verdict. Seemed like a good idea at the time. All right. So it's like a dog and his boy or a boy and his dog and whatnot kind of story. It's yeah, I can see why it's wouldn't have been a good movie. So glad that wasn't used. The Cassidy screenplay. Basic setup. Diving deep, this screenplay packed in a lot of lore following the story of Cassidy. Problems spanning multiple time periods following multiple characters and featuring lore from multiple games. That this was pretty saturated to a fault. It may have been satisfying to the most hardcore fans, but it would have left the majority of people confused and lost. Hey, wait, maybe this was the most accurate screenplay. Maybe. Verdict, ultimately more of a visual encyclopedia than a movie. This just wasn't satisfying, even to me. Out! Yeah, making a movie based on one character and her lore would have only been familiar to people, who are hardcore fans to it, such as me, Dako, and all the other theorizers. But to the casual players, like, huh? Who's this Cassidy character? Right? Most people are not going to understand it, so it probably wouldn't get that well rated and probably wouldn't do well at the box office. So, yeah, out you go. Misfit Kid screenplay. Whew. Basic setup. Single mom brings her kid to a new town. Kid finds Freddy's. Hilarity ensues. So I guess it would have been like comedy, I guess. Maybe. I don't know. Problems. One of the problems in creating a modern day story with an old Freddy setting is finding a way to connect the protagonist to the restaurants, finding a reason for them to be there, and finding a reason for them to stay. The problem here was the reason for this kid to go to Freddy's and have misadventures was too contrived and too forced. Verdict, not a bad setup, but it just didn't work. If I don't care about the characters, there's a good chance no one else will either. Pass. This was going to be the screenplay for a while because it didn't have any serious flaws. I ultimately just decided it wasn't good enough, though. Alright, I can understand this one too. Like, yeah, there are ways you can connect them to Freddy's, right? And it would have worked fine. I could probably make a video talking about possible connections that could have been made, but again, if they don't care, then it, most likely other people aren't going to care too. But that has been proven wrong in the past. Like, oh, I'm just going to, not do much with this character and people aren't going to care. I don't care about this character. Other people most likely won't care. So we're just going to kill him. And, it can turn people off. But let's get into the next one. The Ghost Tracker screenplay. Okay, this is going to just be one of those ghost hunters, isn't it? Yep, I guess so. Basic setup: a group of amateur ghost trackers sneak into abandoned Freddy's. Yeah, I called it. It's just gonna be a ghost story, ghost hunting story, and whatnot. Problems. Although a very common sense setup for this sort of movie, the problem again arose about how to give these characters a connection to Freddy's itself. What ended up happening was too much of the story went to their own backstories and their own hardships, and it took the spotlight away from the story of Freddy's. Verdict: a stronger connection between protagonist and Freddy's was needed. Lesson learned. Alright. Yeah, glad this wasn't used either. The insane screenplay. Basic setup. Another Ghost Tracker variation. This one involved the Funtime animatronics. Interesting. Underground ball pit tunnels and a marionette out for revenge. Interesting. Problems. As some of the other screenplays ventured too far into adventure, this one ventured too far into action. Verdict: too all over the place with too many characters doing too many things. Yeah, this isn't Endgame. So it makes sense. This is Five Nights at Freddy's. Keep it simple. The Mike screenplay. Basic setup. This makes sense. Why didn't I think of this before? Very interesting story. Actually, this is a good mix. It has the best pieces from all of the previous screenplays. Not really any problems here. All the right characters, all the right motivations, all the right stakes. Verdict: yeah, we're going with this one. It's fun, it's scary, and it has a great central story. All right, what's the bad news then? All right, so on to the bad news. The bad news is that there won't be any more screenplays to add to this list since we're officially making the Mike screenplay. Filming starts in spring, which, hell yes. We have been waiting for this for a long time, and you know what? If it took this many screenplays to find the perfect one, I am glad it took forever to get to this point. Yeah, I'm glad it has evolved and changed over the years. So hopefully we get to see something good. A good horror movie for once. To get over that Slender Man depression from how terrible that Slender Man movie was. Like, god damn, that was awful. But this is FNAF, so we gotta hope that this is gonna be good. I think it will be. I legitimately think it will be. But we'll just have to see. We'll see what happens. Whatever happens, happens. And that'll be that. I think it'll be good, but we'll just have to wait and see. So anyway, if you guys like this video, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe to join the Creeper Cat Army. I will see you later, recruits. Peace out.